What is up, everybody? Brandon Golden with the Ghost Carolina Performance Podcast. Super pumped to have my guy on here, Zach Plesac. Zach, welcome, brother.
What's going on, man? Thank you for having me. Just looking forward to talking to you, man. It's been a minute since I've seen your face, so it's good to see you.
I know, dude, no doubt, man. Yeah, just wanna give you a minute, just give the listeners and the folks a little bit about you and kind of your career starting in high school and then working up.
Yeah, for me, I was a three-sport athlete growing up. I think basketball, football, and baseball were all equally loved by me, so I had a lot of time bouncing around between those sports, and so it wasn't mainly baseball focused for me most of my life until about like my senior year of high school. After I committed to Ball State was when I realized obviously I'm going to play in college, and so I had to kind of focus on baseball more. But um, in high school, I didn't really play a lot of the travel baseball stuff because I was doing football and basketball open gyms. So I played American Legion, which is like hometown, basically like little league for high school kids to
Yeah.
play. And I'm not even sure if they're doing American Legion anymore. Maybe some places are, but it was just like a local little thing, organized baseball. And so I just really did that in the off seasons of when school season started. So and there would be like workouts and different morning things that I would make sure I'd go to, but it was really busy for me, and I kind of kept busy. And if I was doing like an open gym at night, I would go to the baseball morning workouts in the morning. So I would try to just be involved with baseball as much as I can because I loved it. So I didn't really, yeah, the couple travel teams I like played for were short stinted, so, and at the same time when I was playing, travel ball community wasn't as strong as it is now. I think there's a big prep baseball and all the things that kind of go into travel ball for 14 to 18 is a little bit different now. But I actually ended up getting seen by Ball State at one of those travel tournaments. I had got asked to play for some team for a week tournament in Cincinnati, and Rich Maloney saw me at Ball State. Was going to go to Kent State. I think they had like 80% scholarship on the table for me, which was like at the time a big deal because schools only had 11 and a half scholarships. And so they would break that up. But Rich Maloney gave me a call when I was at a tournament and was basically like, you have an offer here that you're not going to turn down. So my mom made us leave. We go to Ball State, and he gave me a full scholarship. And so that was like, I made my commitment junior year. Um, Freshman year going to college, thinking I'm going to play two-way because at this point I still wasn't just like a pitcher, right? I'm just like position player, and then I would come in and just like blow doors at the end of the games. But I kind of get there, and immediately I'm just kind of grouped in with the pitchers. Um, Realize like all the older guys are going to get their first reps in at positions, and I ended up being just a pitcher my freshman year in college, closer, and I got the National Freshman Pitcher of the Year award.
Yeah.
I ended up going like 12-2 with 6 saves. So like a lot of my relief appearances, I'd be like snaking wins, and then I would come in to get the save. So my numbers were crazy. I
Yeah.
so and then the next year is when I started to play two ways again, my sophomore year, and then I became a full time starter as well as like DHing and playing left field and first base. And then junior year is my draft year, and I ended up getting Tommy John the month before the draft. So got to have like two starts in that college season. I think my last start was Miami of Ohio conference game. It was me and Eric Lauer. You know that name, Eric Lauer?
I've heard of it. I don't remember off the top of my head though, but I've definitely
Yeah,
heard.
he's a lefty. He's been in the show. He pitched for the Brewers and the Padres. He's my age, but he was like kind of the top dog in the conference. It was going to
Yeah.
be like me and him, and he went like 8 innings, 9 punchies, 1 run, and then the next day I pitched and went complete game, like 10 punchies, no runs, and it was like on. And then I woke up the next day following that start, elbow was just like blown up,
Yeah.
and it was just wraps from there. So then, um, they say I fell from like second round to 12th round in the draft, but whatever. I think in the end, like my end goal was obviously to get to the big leagues. I was never looking like I'm gonna get drafted, and that was what I wanted in my career, in my life. It was always get to the big leagues. Getting drafted was just like a step. So like I couldn't have been more blessed, I think is the right word, to be put in the position to be drafted by Cleveland at the time because of how well their organization is just kind of ran their whole system through and through, and especially their rehab organization. So like being drafted by them and putting into that system was just the best thing that could have ever happened to me because they're so dialed.
Yeah.
And my whole rehab process took like a year and a half off of Tommy John. So it was I went to Arizona where they have spring training, and I was at that facility for July when I got drafted through next July and broke um, with short season. So that must have been like, late summer to
Mm.
the end of the fall. So I was out like, yeah, the surgery was in April, drafted in July. So at that point, it had been like a year and a half, broke with short season the next year. Um, so then that's the first time I'm coming into the following year after I'm drafted of like going through a spring training. But even the year I got drafted, the following year I didn't get to go through a spring training because I was rehabbing. So then the next year is my first spring training, technically. And then I had gotten up to double A, and then take me to 2019. Wasn't in big league camp and wasn't on like any roster or nothing. I don't even know. I don't even think I was a prospect, but had been finished the year before, like a little bit of a velo up crease, and then it was like May of 2019. So I was drafted in 2016, missed that year, missed most of 17, come back 2018, make it up to double A. 2019, I'm in double A, coming into spring training, and I'm throwing really hard. And next thing you know, beginning of the season, I get a call up to the show. So I got like, I think I went like, it was like a 24 inning scoreless streak in double A. I got called up to triple A, had 3 starts in triple A, and then called up to the show in May. So it all kind of happened fast, but it was crazy because going back to like just what the end goal was, there's no like pace on it, I feel. It kind of just comes when you're ready to take it on, like physically and mentally. And I was such an on a roll, especially in that time, to get me in the position to be lined up for that opportunity. So like even leading back, like just the day I was drafted and all the timing of my rehab and of the timing of when I started feeling good and started pitching good and how events kind of unfolded to give me an opportunity. You could say like luck played a lot into it, because like it's a lot of luck and timing, and then you have to be feeling good at that point. So then, then I'm in the show. But like I'm going to use, for instance, this year when I was with the Angels and I'm grinding, I'm kind of going through a little bit of back stuff that started in the beginning of the season, like before spring. And I'm grinding through it, turns into sciatica. I'm just trying to like keep it on the low, get my starts, like just grind through it, bro. And I'm putting up like 6 innings a start. I'm still grinding, quality starts, and then I go and have like a great game. I do nothing different than any other game. It's just I ended up cutting these dudes up for like almost a complete game. And
Yeah.
so then I wake up the next day, bro. I'm like, damn, like this is probably the worst spot I've been in all year. Like I'm gonna be okay, but I'm definitely like banged up. And
Yeah.
then it's like get to the field that day, boom, you're going to the show. And then it's like, damn, like yeah, like I couldn't have been more excited, but in the real life physical world, like my body was like not in a good spot to go to the show and to
Right.
showcase what I'm capable of, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think going back to like with Cleveland, how that all unfolded, where I was like in a perfect position to then be given the opportunity to then like feel good and roll, and I was in a good spot, and even this year, like I ended up pitched that first game, got a win, and it was like I willed that way. I willed my way through that game, but it was even you could tell like throughout the game, like my delivery started unfolding because I was protecting myself. And I think just knowing the end goal, and I think last year I didn't have enough of an end goal to chase, I was kind of just trying to like too much flow. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a point where you can flow and balance, but there's a point where you got to like at least be heading in a direction. And I think last year, in my opinion, for me, felt like was the first year I didn't really have like a direction. I was just trying to like put it all together
Yeah.
because I hadn't really been feeling good the year before that, and I've been feeling good, but my velo hasn't been there. So I'm like constantly battling myself. I'm like, am I able to do this? Am I doing something wrong? Am I able to fix it? Am I overthinking it? And then
Yeah.
you're like, I need to take a deep breath here. I'm like, so it's like last year, I that's kind of how I felt. When you look at numbers and ERA and things like that, and probably aren't the best that I'm not happy with certain numbers, but there are things I am happy with the amount of innings that I pitched, the amount of quality starts that I had. And there's that one point when my season ended at the end of August where I was leading the whole league in innings pitched. So I had been given innings and like going out there giving them 6 plus, and so there was something like I could at least be proud of, and that's how I have beginning to started to like think that way, because like that's the way that got me to where I wanted to be. And then next thing you know, you're like trying to play puzzle piece when you have all the pieces, you got to turn the puzzle around so you can see what the picture is. It's like not that it's falling apart. So it's so easy though to lose sight of like what you're actually chasing. And I think that's important is to have an end goal or to know where you want to get to. Because when you actually are in, what you are heading towards, you can at least have a sense of direction of be towards or close to. Even if you don't reach it, you're going to be close to it. So it's like I think that's important. It keeps you in a direction, a good direction.
Yeah, man, absolutely. That's some awesome. Well, I'm over here taking a bunch of notes. That's some awesome stuff for us to start off on. Like one of the things that I kind of heard when you were talking about pretty much everything was like your ability to embrace some type of adversity and like just keep trucking, man. Like no, like I've known you for a while. I've had the opportunity to train you and be with you and down in Florida and Arizona and stuff. Like that's never been a mentality of yours to just be like, okay, like something happened, like I'm just gonna roll over and quit. Like how have you been able to do that for so long at such a high level?
Yeah, I think it just comes with I'm a gym rat at heart, and I think I love to just work and better myself and my own personal development. But um, a good support system and a good solid foundation on like what you're trying to do. I think, it's been hard. I felt like I've gone through periods where I don't have a solid piece of what I'm trying to do. I'm kind of like picking from this tree, looking under this bush, looking under this rock. And it's like sometimes like you just have to take it on and trust it and just one day it's going to click for you and you've been trying to do the same field day in and day out and day in and day out, but then one day it clicks and you're like dang, it's just because I stuck with it. And it's like again going back to I think those like short-term fulfillments aren't going to do it for me anymore. Like it's more long term, and it's more long term focus and long term like oriented, not necessarily like years, but like where I want to be. And like a great piece of advice I got was you can't fix everything in one throwing session. And it was like, dude, so right, because I've been like throwing in a throwing session. And it's like just you're out there to have fun and like get some work in, but feel good. And I'm like not feeling something right, and I'm like trying to fix it. Next thing you know, I've thrown like 150 throws, and
Yeah.
then like the next day, like you don't feel good, and you're trying to get work in, and you're just overloading yourself, and then it's just like it's just like again finding for to make it real simple. I think it's finding my like self identity of who I am and what I believe in and what I am going to stand true on. And it's really going to be that simple. Like, I think that's it, really.
Yeah, dude, that's great.
Yeah.
So with you being, a three sport athlete and you still do a lot of different things, like you probably train yourself a little bit different than most pitchers and even hitters in the big leagues do. Like how has your training evolved since you were in high school till to where you're at now?
Yeah, I think high school is more get jacked, like throw up weight. I had a really good, actually, I was blessed in high school to have a really good strength coach. He was an Olympic lifting strength coach who had a great mentor. And I forgot where he came from, but he was like new when I was a freshman. So he was a whole new thing that came into the system, taught us how to power clean, power snatch, front squat, proper knees, proper alignment with your neck and everything. Like overhead squats, dude, like sitting there for a 5 count and opening up the body and really just like kind of opening up my understanding of what it's like for the body to move. Um, and so that was my first kind of like glimpse into like the what's the word, like the complicated forms of
Yeah.
training, I guess, So then I go to college and it's a little bit of the same thing, honestly, a little bit backwards, but then as being a pitcher, you're kind of more focused on a little bit more pitcher stuff now. And that's when I'm really starting to really focus on like pitcher specific exercises. And then professionally, I began to develop understanding of pre-care and then your workout and then post-care. And then as I started to be a professional and training with you and just becoming more self-aware of how my body moves, that's when you kind of start diving in the way your body works and the way your body's shaped and the way it naturally likes to move based on how you stand and how you walk. And so then we kind of get into the testing, and then I began to understand we can find all this information out by testing. So, then we go through our assessment, and then next thing you know, I can understand what I do well or what hip is has more internal external rotation than the other. And now it's like as I got climbed the ladder of professional, the work I do, I guess, being a professional, I've also dove into that side of the strength conditioning. It's like how complicated it gets. It's a little more like it's a little more complicated, I guess, more intricate and more individualized.
Yeah.
I think as you become more self-aware of how your body moves is when you kind of start taking that approach at it.
Yeah, no, dude, that's awesome. That makes a lot of sense. What are some things that you do maybe outside of training? Like we talked about, how complicated these things can be and like believing in yourself and just like your mentality and the way you go about stuff. Like what do you do outside of baseball and outside of training to like maybe give yourself a break and just be you for a little bit?
Yeah, I'm trying to. Well, I love to golf. I really just love to be outside. Anything that has to do with outside, I enjoy it. I like waking up early, um, seeing that first crack of dawn, and just like I'm trying to think of things that are like free to do. But for me, like I like to hoop. I'll go to a park and shoot around. I'll golf. I'll go on the boat here. Um, spend time with families. I spend a lot of time on the phone with my brothers. I have a twin brother and a younger brother. So like we chat, like I'll drive up to Tampa to get my work in and we're on the phone for like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And so like I talk to my brothers, really just like to be outside. That's why I moved to Florida, like I love sports. I'm a gym rat. I'm in the gym. It's really there's always some sort of motion going, and from as of late like I really just been hitting the gym hard and training and like doing my throwing and arm care, but I've in my free time like I'll just be outside on the boat fixing stuff around the house,
Yeah.
golfing, walking the dog.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. What advice, like knowing everything that you know now and kind of everything that we've been talking about and that you've gone through as a, person and a player, like what advice would you give yourself as a high school athlete and how, yeah, let's stick with that. What advice would you give yourself as a high school athlete?
As a high school athlete, I would say, just really learn discipline as early as you can. I think we learn discipline as we get older and like things happen to us or like some either get in trouble or like something happens to where like it's blatant and tells you like, yo, you need to be more disciplined and lock in. But I think just being a little bit more disciplined and showing up like when you're supposed to in the mornings or like getting that extra work, not just it depends how long you want to take it because I was doing all that stuff, so it's like hard to say if I could give myself any other
Right.
advice.
Yeah.
Um, so it's like and there's been times too where like I've done some dumb shit as a kid, and somehow I didn't get in trouble. And so it's like you obviously want to say, you want to say like do good in school and be disciplined, but like if I could give myself any advice, like because I had fun, you want to have fun, and okay, if I could give myself any advice, was it'd be to continuously make goals for yourself.
Mhm.
Continuously make goals for yourself. At least make one ultimate goal for yourself and then along your way, make goals for yourself. I think that's so important, and it reminds you what you're chasing after. So it's like you don't wake up and with a little bit of confusion or like anxiety. You're like, look, I already know what I want, so what's going to help me get there today?
Million percent.
You can move. So I think that would be my piece of advice, was to give yourself like an ultimate goal, and then make goals for yourself as you move and continue to work towards those things.
Yeah, that's great, man. For those that don't know, like that don't know what it takes and like the stress and just what it is to be a big leaguer, like explain, like walk us through like what your debut was like.
Yeah, it's yeah. I gotta yeah, it's wild. I wish I could tell you a full story on
Yeah.
here another time, but my debut, the stress is honestly, what's crazy is a little bit off the question for 1 second, but I realized early in my career when I would like go when I was and I would go to my starts and I would be nervous, there would be this energy of just such excitement, dude. And it would almost be like this alpha ego filled, like nobody's touching me at all, dude. And as soon as you would get that rush, you're like, I'm unstoppable.
Yeah.
And then I started like few years into the show, I started to get like that feeling where it was like I was gonna be sick before a game. Like I would get like that nervous temptation in my stomach, like I'm gonna actually throw something up.
Yeah.
And dude, I don't know why or how that switched, but there is something to say about that mentally, to where like, dude, I watched the Tom Petty documentary, and he was talking about when he would go to perform, and there'd be one point in the show all the time that he would be like, it would almost click, and he'd be like, I'm rolling. He like compared it to sex, bro, which is wild. And he was like, and I remember I can think back to starts where like get through the first, get through the second, maybe a guy on, boom, 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 2 outs, big spot, make a pitch, get through the third, then you're like, you realize you've been making good pitches, and you're like, now I'm rolling. Like you already know now, you're like, now there's been points in times where like that mindset brings you to a spot where you're like, dude, I'm good now. And it's like you kind of go through the motion, then you find that like pocket.
Hmm.
So like there's a point in time where my pocket was comfortable. Like I would be like, it would charge me. And then there was a point when that pocket felt like suffocating.
Mm.
So like, and just as of late, dude, and I think that was because I was trying to find my self identity,
Yeah.
going back to what we were saying earlier. And I didn't really know who I was, what I was bringing. I thought I had these pitches, but they were really trash. And I was trying to like, like stand up for them or something. Like that was going to prove anything. I don't know. I just had like a false. So, going back to, I think there's a mindset that like puts you into those stress environments in a spot where you're like you're ticked up to a level of in heightened like sensory. And I think that just comes with inner self-awareness and self-control and like confidence from within, that like you look at, I've solidified everything here, like there's no reason to be going out there and be scared unless you don't think that you're solidified here.
Right.
So like there's something to say about that. And that's just little things like that, dude. I mean, it's my going back to your question, my big league debut was in Fenway. So it was kind of wild. I had like 50 friends show up, and it was a rainy day, and I pitched the first inning. There was a rain delay. The game went into rain delay for like an hour and a half, and I came back out and pitched through the fifth, like 5 2/3. Ended up getting a no decision. But I remember like that first inning, when I'm on the mound, the ball felt like a golf ball in my hand. And dude, I like yanked the first pitch. It was Mookie Betts was my first hitter. And I yanked the first pitch, and then we try to go inside, and I pull it away again. And then I throw another ball like middle down, and he fouled it off. And if he didn't foul that off, it would have been 3-0, and I would have never thrown a strike in the big. I'm telling you. So then he fouled that off, and then he ended up like chopping one to third.
Yeah.
And then, dude, I ended up getting through the first, like, bro, I was kind of spraying. And then the rain delay happened. And I came back that second inning, and it was like a whole new aura had felt lifted over me. Like there was not this like it wasn't like a jittery feel anymore. It was like a sense of relaxation. And it was like I went out there at the beginning and I was like jitter, and then the rain delay happened, and then it was like relaxation, and I just like finally felt free. And that was just from my personal experience, you know. So like I know that leading up like that morning, like I couldn't sleep, and I was up early, like walking around Boston, just because like I was like I'm in Boston, never been here before,
Right.
and I'm pitching that night in Fenway.
The show.
I'm like acting like a tourist. Yeah.
Mhm.
So like, but I have learned like as I've gotten older and new practices are kind of evolving now in the new age of like breath work and like, you know, sauna, hot tub, cold plunge kind of deals. And I've started to experience more in that space. And I remember like back in 2017, Alan Yeager, the dude who made Jaeger bands, he was telling me about meditation and breathing. And that was like, dude, 10 years ago almost.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was like, that wasn't even a thing like how it is now. But now when I use that a couple times a week at least. You know, I try to be as every day as I can, as little as 5 minutes belly breathing, just like doing that stuff and the cold plunge and sitting next to my cold plunge right now. Just different things where like they say you can create willpower by doing things that you don't want to do and by refraining from things that you want to do. And so there's a point in that practice where you can play the mental game with yourself. You're like, how bad do I really want it? You're like, yeah, I want it, but like, then you're like, I'm gonna get in the cold plunge today and not make a face. Like, I'm not gonna be like, you know, I'm gonna be like the whole time. Like, I'm gonna relax my face. Can I relax my face in a stressful environment? Because like, think about it. When you're in a stressful environment, you're just practicing like being stressed. It's like, see if you can practice like not being stressed, like as much as you want to. Just like, you know, don't let yourself. So like little stuff, like little games like that, I'll play with myself, and um, yeah, I try to do like the breath holds when I do my breath work. I don't have like a consistent routine. I wake up, do this, go to sleep, do that. But there'll be times throughout the day where you'll like know you have free time on your hands, and you kind of like maybe you're not feeling the best, or maybe you're feeling great. And you're like, I can maybe just breathe for 5 minutes out of my breath, like five out of my belly. Like that's all I need to do is five minutes. Boom, and you're like, wow, I feel clear. Like I just feel good. So because dude, there's I mean it's public things like I punched the ground when I was pitching in the show and broke my hand.
Right.
And so there were demons I was fighting with that dude leading up to that. That's not there's never been a point in time where like maybe in high school, like in basketball practice, I would like hit the wall, you know, but like something led up to the outburst of like release of energy for me. So like, and it was leading up that start particularly. I gave up 3 hits and they were all single or solo homers. And we're down 3-0 in the seventh, and I'm grinding, bro. I'm not giving up any hits except little like solos randomly.
Yeah.
And at that point in time in the season, like I had, bro, there's like 3 no hitters thrown against me the year before. Then I had the lowest run support in baseball at the time. So every start I'm going out there, bro, I feel like it's a different feeling when you're like up four or like up two, or when you're down one or tied or up one or down two or whatever. Like, dude, you get done with that game and you're just like, oh, I'm exhausted. And I had been doing that for months straight. It felt like. And so then finally, I'm like, I feel good. I'm throwing hard. My shapes are nasty. No one's getting a hit off me except I gave up 3 solos. And after the third one, I like just reaction, like hit the ground. And that just goes back to me not having it all together emotionally.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it had to prevail itself in a situation like that. But now I'm able to see like how I was led to that moment, what I learned from that moment, and how I can be better from that, you know? And obviously, you know, people say like certain instances don't define who you are.
Yeah.
And I kind of agree with that. And at the same time, like I'll never like shy away from anything that has happened, you know, like I'll always take ownership from it. It's one of those things like I like self betterment, want to be a better person, and you got to learn from that stuff. And there's a part where I had to get better at learning how to control I'm such a charged person, bro. I'm so competitive and I just have
Yeah.
so much energy and I'm like ADD, bro. It's crazy. So, and I just get excited and, um, so like learning how to like control that. And I think that's how like before when we were talking about that stress and how you manage it, I would use all of that energy and it would be charging me into like this superhuman with a baseball in my hand. And then I started using my emotions to charge me in things that didn't serve me. And next thing you know, it causes like an outburst in something negative, you know? So it's like, I think in my early years in the show, I was in a better headspace than what I got to, was my point. So like that headspace is very important. So that's what I've really learned now 30 years old, like being in that headspace, going back to Tom Petty and going back to like being in these moments, like finding that headspace is so important. And sometimes it takes traumatic experience and then some people can find it through practice, you know? So it's like, it's hard to say how, you know, but I think being yourself, know who you are, like knowing who your self identity is really allows that to like bring itself to life more often. Like you can get into those moments more often when you're truly being yourself, you know. And I think there was a point in time where I was trying so hard to be like, I wasn't being myself, you know. I was kind of like being a plaster of what I wanted to be in
Yeah.
terms of on the field, you know. I was so robotic and like I wasn't out there just freaking out playing backyard baseball, like obviously organized, but like being free, you know. So that's my little 2 cents about that.
Yeah, dude. No, that's awesome. That's good stuff for people to hear and understand, man. Because like none of us are perfect, dude. Like I'm, coming out of professional baseball and being a performance coach in college baseball, like I feel like I was pretty good at that, and I still feel like I'm that's what makes me as like a performance coach. Like as on the professional side, like I'm good at that stuff. Like I understand it. Like I can kick it and I can talk the lingo with the best of them. Running
Yeah.
a business, man, that shit's wild. Like it's way different than coaching and doing like, and it's a part of it. But I mean, just like you were learning how to be a big leaguer at certain points in time, like I'm learning how to be a business owner and run things and then also have a family. And, we got two little boys and another one on the way, dude. So it's like, all right, like we're constantly growing and evolving and figuring things out and being able to take deep breaths and respond in a positive way, man. So it happens to everybody. It's something that we all, if we want to, the ones that want to be elite human beings, like we're always looking at ourselves and be like, okay, like how could I have handled that better? And then to your point
Right.
earlier, like using our support systems to like to check us a little bit and be like, hey, am I on the right track here? Or like
Right.
or not. Man, that's great stuff, dude. Thanks for talking about that. I want to
Yeah.
segue a little bit into we were talking earlier before we pressed record about like some of your shapes and some of the pitches and some of the different things, like basically your arsenal. Like talk to us a little bit of like what your arsenal is today and how you've evolved it to where it is.
So today, I as of today, as the past months or whatever, I've been working on a new kick change, and I really just learned this kick change like a month and a half ago, and just started throwing it in live VPs, and it's really good. It's like zero line right now, and that's been my biggest um, liability, I guess, in my pitch arsenal is my changeup. It's not creating any deception. It's basically a second slower heater, and then it makes my heater bad because I'm throwing the changeup off of it. And so I needed something to separate it with some depth, and so I found the circle kick change. Um, and so I've been throwing that and being able to feel that ring finger come off of it and kick that seam shift to get it split action, but it's like commandable. So I curl the middle finger and I throw it off that ring finger, and that's been the pitch that I added. And I also added a two seam. So I'm throwing a four seam, two seam, slider, kick change, curveball.
Nice.
So I got two heaters and I got a new changeup, and then my curveball feels really good, and my slider's been probably like keeping me playing the game. So that's going to be huge for me going forward. You know, I needed a depthier changeup, and I needed another heater to show something hard going another direction.
Yeah, that's awesome, dude. What's the like how obviously we were talking about earlier about like you going out and throwing and at times like you can throw a bunch and like just trying to feel certain things. How important is catch play? Like explain to, high school kids listening, their parents, college kids, pro guys, like performance coaches, like whoever's listening to this, like how important is catch play on a daily basis?
Catch play is how you get your work in for that day. Like that's for me as a thrower, a pitcher. When I throw a baseball, that's what I'm doing my craft, my art. So I wouldn't say it's careless. And there's a point where you like don't want to make it too, like I said earlier, like you don't want to fix everything in one throwing progression. You don't want to overemphasize things, but you definitely use that time to maybe do a couple drills or maybe get athletic or like going back to my point is kind of just having maybe set a goal for the throwing progression. What do you want to work on for that day? Boom. Then you kind of go into it. I think it should definitely not be a careless act. That's how you get your working for the day. I think another thing that's important to do is like touch the mound like as often as you can. Just like work the slope, even if it's dry wrap or just like touch a couple. Like you don't have to let it rip, but just feel it. Even if you want to bring the catcher up, but you've got to feel what it's like to create that like that move down the slope. Because when you get on flat ground, personally, like I think throwing so much on flat ground caused a habit for me to extend from my hips forward because I'm matching the plane as opposed to making work down. So I got in this like habit of, you know, doing something that I shouldn't have because I kind of overdid it on the flat ground. So it's like having that sense of this is what I'm going to work on. I'm going to work on that, but the money's made on the mound too. So I got to make sure I'm getting enough reps on the slow, at least something just to feel like, all right, I got all I needed. You don't have to overdo that either. It's like having a sense of feel, less is more, but just know what you're trying to feel.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that's a very simple thing that a lot of players at all levels don't do enough, in my opinion, is get on the mound and actually throw the baseball off the mound. Because to your point, that's where you're throwing it. And the more you can be on there, the better.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man. Well, this has been great. Do you have any like anything that you're reading right now or like any last advice for the folks listening about like anything really?
Shoot. Um, Man, don't trust everything you see on TV. No, I think it's no, man. It's more so just like, man, if people now, the way that baseball is moving now, people are starting to really implement training and understand like the science of different exercises. And I feel like now more than ever, like there's so many things out there for people to do. And I think it's important to learn as early as you can. One, things that you enjoy to do, and two, things that you need to do that are going to get you better based on what you lack. So, like having that ability to have that conversation with yourself and like say, what are my weaknesses? This is what I need to get better at. And then also do the things you enjoy. You don't want to always do things you hate. So it's like you got to find that balance, I think, of doing things you enjoy and then doing things that you need to do to get yourself better because you're not good at X, Y, Z. So being able to self analyze, I guess, is the last piece of advice I would be able to give because I think that goes a long way. You're your own biggest critic. And I think obviously not to be too hard on yourself, but you have to be honest with yourself at the same time. And there's areas where you need to get better at, whether you want to convince yourself you do or don't, but you got to like have that be able to self analyze.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, man. Couldn't say enough good things about you, buddy. I really appreciate you doing this for us.
For sure. BG, likewise, man. Thank you.
Of course.